Hi people. So the previous video I made on this, curiously didn't get a lot of attention. That's a little bit surprising because it's a big story. It's garnered a lot of attention. I'm referring to the defamation trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So I want to expand a bit on that video because there's other angles that have come about since then. This might be a longer video, so feel free to multitask, do the dishes, whatever, whilst you're listening. Um, right, so first thing before I get into this, there's a few things actually. Disclaimer, the trial is ongoing. That's very important to consider. So everything I'm saying here is just what's already been reported, and what has already transpired. The trial, I don't know what the closing date is. I think it's got a certain degree of flexibility in terms of whether new witnesses come forward and so on. But so far, the things I'll be talking about are things that have already been discussed and debated and revealed. Um, the other big story today that I'm focusing on is the Philippines presidential election. Significant this year because Ferdinand Marcos Jr., known as Bongbong, is on course to winning. And that's somewhat concerning, for me at least, because this guy is the son of the late dictator and he's never renounced his father's excesses on human rights abuses. And for many Filipinos, there will be painful memories of that. Nevertheless, he's obviously run a strong campaign in terms of PR, and he is on course to win. His nearest rival is the vice president. In the Philippine system, the vice president's elected separately. So she's Duterte's vice president, she's elected separately. She's actually a human rights lawyer, Lenny Robredo. And I've got a friend in Manila who's a strong supporter of hers, and she's been very busy. There's a list of all her achievements. I'm an outsider, but my gut feeling is I think it would raise question marks on Philippine democracy and human rights if Marcos was to be re-elected, given that he hasn't distanced himself from his father's record. I was watching a bit of the presidential debate, nine candidates on the stage. I don't speak Tagalog, but there was intersperses of English, and the subject matter was, the writing was in English for the subject matter, CNN Philippines. So I found it interesting, particularly the stances on Ukraine and the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea, as it's seen there. Anyway, that's something I'll be following. But to get to the case in hand, the Depp Heard trial, there's a number of points I want to raise, which I think are very important in this case. Now, before I get into this, a bit of context as to who I'm referring to when I talk about Charlotte Proudman. Dr. Charlotte Proudman is a barrister. She's a self-described feminist barrister in the UK, and she got some attention about 5, 6 years ago. I can't remember the precise date. I think I made a video about it at the time when she sued her boss for using, as she saw it, sexist language. I felt the whole thing was overblown then, and the article that she's just come out with in the Independent, or the op-ed, I should say, really further makes me feel that she's just utterly, utterly biased and basically a misandrist. Because the article was so ridiculously one-sided, op-ed that is, her whole narrative was, why is everyone backing Johnny Depp? Because women are not heard, and this was her whole narrative. Nowhere in the op-ed, not once, did she bother to acknowledge that there has been audios actually proving Amber Heard's abuse against Depp. She utterly failed to recognize the fallout on men who are in this situation that Depp has testified to. Um, it was just a ridiculously one-sided article, and I think it done her no favors. A friend of mine knows Charlotte Proudman and said that she respects her work on FGM, female genital mutilation, but she agreed with me that on areas like this, she's wrong. She's just so ridiculously biased. I mean, this is what I really dislike about that sort of feminist, where the worldview is such that men are perpetually bad women are perpetually telling the truth. Therefore, if a woman is questioned, if people are questioning her body language and so on, as has been the case with Amber Heard, oh, it must be sexism. It must be sexism. She doesn't consider that actually the reason her cynical of Amber Heard is because of the evidence that's being presented. Not because she's a woman, it's because of the evidence that's being presented. And I've just read today that apparently she has had previous partners. Amber Heard's bisexual. She's had female partners who apparently have alleged abuse at the hands of her as well. In the late 2000s, apparently the police were called to a domestic disturbance incident. Um, that's very important. If that's true, that is, it would demonstrate a character analysis of this person that she has a track record. Now, why does this matter? Some people might dismiss it as a tabloid story. It's a celebrity story. Certainly, Johnny Depp is one of the most famous actors in Hollywood. He's an A-lister. So people might be tempted to dismiss it as just a tabloid-esque story, like sensationalist, it's involving celebrities. But I actually think it is important. It's an important news item because of the implications. The implications of how domestic violence against men, domestic abuse against men, because it isn't just violence, it's psychological as well, is perceived, especially in the post Me Too era. I think it's very important for that reason. Um, I also think it utterly calls into question this notion of believe all women. But anyway, I'm going to go into a number of points here, so bear with me. I think they're all important. I'm just going to basically paraphrase what I've said in my on my Facebook timeline related to this. Incidentally, I got quite a lot of support for that post, including from women I know who are feminists. So that's significant. This isn't a case of men versus women. I really don't see this as a battle of the sexes. It shouldn't be. I see it as a case of weighing up the evidence and looking at it in that regard. So this is my take. I'm going to go through the points. There's about seven of them. Okay. I don't consider myself anywhere near a Johnny Depp superfan. I like quite a bit of his work and consider him a unique actor, but I don't believe in celebrity cults. It's possible some Depp supporters will be blinded by their fandom. However, many others will be looking at this case objectively. Johnny Depp comes across as a sincere man, but again, that is his public image. Okay, there is unquestionably an element of this case where there is a bit of fandom going on. I think we have to be honest about that. There are a lot of hardcore Johnny Depp fans who will just blindly believe him and believe he's being hard done by. And you've seen this. It reminds me of the Michael Jackson trials. As he's going into the courtroom, he's cheered, and Heard is booed. There is a sensationalistic side to it, and there are Depp fans who aren't necessarily, in my opinion, adding anything to this because they're just taking little snippets of supposedly her body language and thing about body language, I wouldn't read too much into that, other than people who are actually trained in reading body language. I think people are just reading between the lines. And in the case of Amber Heard, if she's sitting, as she did during his testimony, for hours listening to that, there's no expression she can show that isn't going to be scrutinized. I imagine her lawyers have trained her to be just look somber and formal, and yeah, so I honestly wouldn't read too much into that. But even allowing for the fact that there will be people who are blinded by that fandom, I think that there are many others, including myself, who are looking at this objectively. I like Johnny Depp as an actor. I like quite a few of his films. I've seen a lot of his films, but I wouldn't call myself a super fan. I'm not a super fan of anyone. Um, so I'm not going to say, oh, well, he seems like a nice guy, so he must be telling the truth. There is a public image and there is the private person, and it's not always the same thing. So that's important to consider. Next point. Released audios have clearly shown that Ms. Heard engaged in abusive behavior, both physically and psychologically. Most observers, including women who have purported to be domestic violence survivors, I'm referring to comments online, women who have said they've been through this, have stated that Heard demonstrates all the behavior of an abuser. Notably, she hasn't denied the abuse, but rather her team has sought to downplay it. Now, these audios are well known. They've been on the internet for a long time. And No one has disputed that the people in the audios are indeed Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Neither party has denied that. So we're left with the content of the audios, and it very clearly shows Amber Heard not denying her violence. Her legal team are now trying to claim that she was defending her younger sister, but there's audios that are showing that that was in context where her sister wasn't even there. She comes across as someone who has very quick temper. She's very prone to anger outbursts. Um, she seems quite unstable in terms of the way that she is using emotional manipulation. Um, and there was a psychologist, I forget the woman's name, but she testified that regarding Amber Heard's narcissistic personality disorder, all of that is very, very significant in building up a profile of someone. And many people have said, like I say, including people who've been through this, she just doesn't come across as someone who would typically be in a domestic violence situation. People in that situation, particularly women, would absolutely want to get out of it. I don't mean leave the relationship. I understand that's a complex area, but want to be out of the situation. Now, Amber Heard, it almost seems that she enjoyed arguments. She wanted to push and push and push, and she accused Depp of splitting, i.e., going away. Her line of thinking was that this was causing emotional turmoil because it wasn't being resolved. Now, what Depp has said on the stand is that he is leaving the situation so it doesn't escalate. Um, and that's understandable. Um, but there was a whole testimony as to Johnny Depp's background and the abuse his mother inflicted on his father, which might explain why he has done the things he's done. And I'll just quickly say a point. There was another high profile case 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Mel Gibson and his Russian partner, um, I think her name was Anna Grigorieva. I can't remember exactly her name, but Mel Gibson, came out with some incredibly toxic messages. And actually, at the time, I remember thinking there were a lot of Mel Gibson fanboys lining up to defend him and say that the woman was a gold digger. But there were things in those audios that cannot be condoned. He's making very clear threats of violence. Now, in this whole trial with Depp and Heard, there was one text message exchange which he had with the actor Paul Bettany, in which he made a statement about basically burning Miss Heard's body and raping her. Now, that's vulgar. It's appalling. Um, and taken in its own, you would think that would be pretty damning against Depp. But he said this was a reference to a Monty Python sketch. Probably it's bad timing, but Depp, said he regretted that, and it was he could understand why it came across badly. Okay, the third point. It is possible that Depp also engaged in abuse, though the fact his previous partners have defended him, coupled with the fact it would be strange to start abusing women in his mid-50s when these abuse allegations began, and bring a trial that would lead to scrutiny of such behaviour should warrant some scepticism. At the same time, it would be wrong to blindly believe that just because someone comes across as sincere in their public life doesn't mean they have a dark side. They don't have a dark side, especially if drinking drugs can influence such behavior. I think so far the evidence weighs in Depp's favor. Um, yeah, so I've touched on this point before. I just think it is strange that a man who would supposedly have this violent behavior towards women, that he would suddenly start in his mid 50s. If Johnny Depp had a problem of violence against women, surely previous female partners would be saying, "Yeah, she's telling the truth. We also experienced this." They have defended him. Winona Ryder's defended him, and other women have defended him. Now, that to me is quite telling. And it just seems strange that he would start in his mid 50s. Most violent men, I gather, I'm no expert, but what I gather is they tend to be violent throughout their adult life. It's not like they suddenly become violent in their mid 50s, unless maybe they've had some sort of incident that has affected their brain. But that would be strange. Also, remember, it's Johnny Depp that has opened up this trial in a bid to clear himself. That's why he testified. That's why he's done it. He wants to clear his name. So he would have known that all of this stuff would have come up. Now, that's a big risk on his part. If there was audio showing him to be an abusive husband, That's a big risk for him to open that up because it's not going to show him in a good light. But he's done that because one has to assume he believes that truth is on his side. But again, I'm not going to just say he is definitely innocent. There may well have been things that have gone on behind closed doors that we don't know about. There was an audio, for example, showing him supposedly being disruptive on a flight. Now, if that's true, it definitely is something I've no respect for. I think, you know, a drunk person at 30,000 feet is a nightmare. So if that's true, then, Depp's side has to be honest about that, or at least I didn't watch the full testimony of that one. Also, a slight concern I've got is the drink and drugs factor. It's kind of a question of did he have a problem, and this is what caused him to be a bad husband and a bad father, as she has alleged, or has her abuse actually driven him to drink and drugs? Now, I do think that alcohol and drug abuse can obscure someone's judgment, and it is possible that it's affected his memory as well. At the same time, it would be very easy to smear him in a negative light because he has had this problem. The Depp's not denying the problem. Um, I understand he called himself a monster when he was in this situation. I also think it would be very, very easy to take advantage of someone who has an addiction problem to smear them and to portray them as a bad person. And people have called into question her ethical judgment in, for example, filming him and recording him when he is at his lowest point. There's ethical questions there. Next point. Heard's legal team have seemingly changed strategy several times and have come across as pushy or rude to witnesses. It's come across as somewhat erratic and inconsistent. A lot of people have read into her body language. I don't know how significant that is, but I would put weight into the opinions of people who've been through domestic violence. One of the main things about this trial is how incumbent her team has come across. They have changed their track record. They've changed their approach numerous times. Um, I would say that the side that is telling the truth would be more consistent. Now, one of the most ridiculous things was when one of her lawyers, actually Mr. Rottenborn, actually objected to his own question, as the judge pointed out. Um, some people have sarcastically said Johnny Depp should thank them because they're doing a pretty good job of exonerating him. I don't like the way they have approached witnesses. I think they've been very pushy to just being rude. I understand that they're doing their job, and in any legal situation, both parties have to have legal representation. Amber Heard has to have a legal defense team. That's due process. That's transparency. That's democracy. But they have come across as pretty incompetent, and I think this trial is going to jeopardize their reputations as well. Next one's important. The Me Too mantra of believe all women should be challenged. It destroys the notion of due process by assuming all women must be telling the truth, and by definition, all accused men must therefore be guilty, when what really should matter is the facts of individual cases. From a minority of misandrous experts, like Dr. Charlotte Proudman, and I'll explain why I'm calling her a misandrous. Men are universally guilty all the time, but it's notable that many women, including self-described feminists, are defending that. I would like to think that is because they're considering the known facts and not from fandom. I also think it's troubling that accused men can be effectively punished by being dropped from productions and blacklisted before even being found guilty. And that's a big part of this case. Depp's side has argued that he has suffered professionally as a result of her accusations. He's been dropped from productions. That's irrefutable. Her team have tried to claim that there was pre-existing problems, that there's no evidence that her op-ed affected this. She's pointed out, and she said this on Instagram, she never directly named Johnny Depp in her op-ed, but it doesn't take a genius to put two and two together. She was married to Depp at the time, so it's not, or she had, been with Johnny Depp. It really doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out she was referring to Johnny Depp. So I don't think it's enough to say, well, she didn't directly name him. The insinuation is very, very strong. That damaged his reputation. Even a popular A-lister like Johnny Depp, it shows that his whole reputation was destroyed. One of the things I dislike most about Me Too is this tendency for big studios, Disney, various Hollywood studios, to just drop someone. based on allegations alone. I remember when Casey Affleck won Best Actor, there was allegations going on around what he had supposedly done. He denied the accusations. He did get the Oscar, that wasn't dropped, but he kind of got the cold shoulder from feminists in Hollywood. And it seems this mantra of believe all women is fundamentally, I think it's toxic because it insinuates that all women must be telling the truth, all men, therefore, that are accused are lying and they're guilty. That's nonsense. Each case should be treated on its own merit. Clearly, there are powerful men who have abused their position and abused women. I think, for example, Harvey Weinstein, I think the evidence against him was very strong, and he was indeed found guilty. So I'm under no illusion that there is definitely a problem, but I think it has become something of a witch hunt whereby men who even question the mantra then find themselves targeted in this furious, Twitter tirade or social media tirade. Matt Damon, for example, said something along the lines of, it was becoming a bit of a witch hunt. That's not verbatim, but he questioned the extent to which it was going. So, in fact, that was one of the reasons he was one of the producers on the film The Last Duel, which starred Jodie Comer, Adam Driver, and himself, based on a medieval duel in France. It was a good movie, actually. I liked it. However, the premise of the film was very Me Too. It was pretty much his truth, her truth, Lee truth, i.e., saying her truth was Lee truth. That's another thing I have a problem with, saying, someone's truth must be Lee truth. Well, the only truth is the facts. Okay, so this thing about if a woman says it's her truth, it must be true. Um, some women lie. Some women lie. Some men lie. This thing about an individual's truth must be the truth because they're a woman or they're a minority is just, I think it totally destroys the very notion of due process. With due process in a legal trial, the only thing that should be considered is the facts. That's it. Um, so I hope this case really puts big scrutiny on that mantra because I think this idea of punishing men, and it is overwhelmingly men, who are accused of something, dropping them from productions before they've even been found guilty in a court of law is a disgrace. Depp himself, he even acknowledged why Disney done it because they wanted to, protect themselves. So I guess the reason these studios do it is because if someone is found guilty, they'll be accused of, oh, you were propping up this rapist or this wife beater, but the point is, it's due process. Until someone is found guilty in a court of law, I'm not a fan of them being punished. And this can cross into other walks of life as well. Politicians who are accused of something are immediately, suspended. Um, I think in any walk of life, if someone faces serious accusations, it should be taken seriously, and they should face legal process. And that process should be as soon as possible for everyone's sake, for the alleged victim's sake, for the defendant's sake. But the fact of the matter is, particularly famous men, actors and singers and so on, if they're accused of something, it doesn't matter if they're found innocent because there will always be that thing on their record that what might have been, well, oh, maybe he was, even if they're found innocent. And it can ruin lives, as Cliff Richard testified when it happened to him. So, I really think that mantra is toxic, and shame on those who promote it because, and I have to say, the Biden administration has totally lapped that up, which is kind of ironic when Biden himself faced accusations leading up to the election. Believe all women, it just needs to be discarded as a concept. What I would propose is treat people with sympathy. If someone's making accusations, take them seriously, but work with the facts and don't say, well, she's alleging that she was abused or she was raped. Treat her sympathetically, look at the evidence, treat her sympathetically, and if need be, arrest the man involved if there's enough evidence for that. But don't say she's a woman, so she must be telling the truth. I think that is really a problem. And of course, the likes of Charlotte Proudman won't bother to look at the implications that has on men. Because Charlotte Proudman is blinded by her misandric bias. Okay, and just a few more points. If a Hollywood A-lister like Johnny Depp can bring attention to male victims of domestic violence and winning this case, assuming that happens, that can only be a positive turning point. It should also send out the message to female abusers that they too can be held to account. I caveat this though with the fact that the case is ongoing and a final judgment hasn't been made. Regardless, it is irrefutable that for too long the plight of male victims has been ignored and downplayed. If nothing else, it is good the issue is being discussed. Okay, so what I mean by that is that well, it's obvious. Um, the case is ongoing, but if someone like Johnny Depp, a famous victim of domestic abuse, and I don't think there's any doubt that there has been abuse against him, if that can bring awareness of the fact that there are male victims too, that can only be a good thing, because male victims don't have a voice. Unless I'm mistaken, in the entire United Kingdom, there is something that one, at most two or three, outlet from men. That's it. And some feminists have even questioned the need for them because they've said whenever men are victims of domestic violence, it must be their own fault. It's only a woman defending herself. Because these misandric feminists, I'm talking about those who say this, I'm not talking about all feminists. And I have feminist friends who are a lot more open minded and they recognize men can also be victims. I'm not talking about those women, I'm talking about those dogmatic misandric types who just cannot bring themselves to acknowledge that there are violent women as well. In one of the worst cases in this country, there was a woman who blinded her young lover, blinded him with acid. It was a horrifying case. Now, she did get a long sentence, but it happens. And even if most cases do involve men against women, that doesn't mean that issues around violence against men should be ignored. Now, some have said that, for example, cases of the partner dying but being murdered is, women being killed by their male partners far outweighs men being killed by female partners, and that's probably true. And the thing is, with something like murder, it's quite easy to quantify something like that. But it's harder to quantify how much abuse is going on that isn't being reported, and that's an important issue. So, if this trial brings more attention to male victims, that's a very good thing, I would say. And every man who's been in this situation, in that sense, owes Johnny Depp gratitude for having the courage to bring this forward. So, in conclusion, I am not going to blindly defend Johnny Depp or vilify Amber Heard. It's obvious that they have had a very flawed and volatile relationship. There are serious implications from this, and people shouldn't trivialize it with sensationalism. But my gut feeling, based on the audios and other evidence presented, is in favour of Depp. I think there are too many cases of male abuse and control, and to be clear, I've always abhorred violence against women, but for too long it has been assumed women are not also capable of such behaviour. Some feminists will say there is a tendency to not believe women, but there is also a tendency to believe that just because men are physically stronger, they can't also be targeted. The stigma on a man if accused of being violent to a woman is profound. Even with Depp's popularity, his career has obviously been impacted significantly. However, this case shouldn't be a battle of the sexes, but simply about truth. It's genuinely sad it has come to this. I just hope that truth prevails in this case. I'm looking at it, and some people are really sensationalizing it. I think it's just sad. I think any kind of relationship is sad, but it could also be an escape for one person involved. Now, some have said, why did Depp not leave if this woman was being abusive? Well, apparently it's because in his background, his father left his mother, and his mother later tried to kill herself. So there was psychological things going on there. It was pretty horrifying when I heard about that. And I watched the film What Eating Gilbert Grape recently. Now, in that film, it's a good movie if you have a chance to check it out with Leonardo DiCaprio. Depp is playing basically the father figure of the family. He's a young man who lived in this really small Midwest town. His mother's morbidly obese. His younger brother, Arnie, played by DiCaprio, has severe learning difficulties. His sisters somewhat help out, but really he is taking care of the whole family, and he's under a lot of pressure. So, that's interesting because that was filmed at a time when Depp was starting to, make his breakthrough, and I think that it's quite. I've also seen interviews at the time when this abuse from Amber Heard was going on, and he's asked about Amber Heard, and he gets a little bit sort of looking down and so on. Again, we can read too much into body language. I'm not going to say Johnny Depp's 100% innocent. I don't think he's the saint that he's being made out to be by his fans. But at the same time, my gut feeling is he is telling the truth. And I just think the risks of him bringing this to trial, if he was genuinely a violent man, it'd just be very risky. So I just hope truth prevails. And I hope that if Depp is vindicated, he starts getting more roles in Hollywood because he'll have had serious lost earnings. An A-list actor is going to get a lot of money. So he has lost out on his income. Um, as for Miss Heard, if she is not vindicated, her career is over. And I can't say I have an enormous amount of sympathy if she is found to be guilty. But it's not over yet, and people should be objective. They shouldn't just look at this of, well, it's Johnny Depp. I love Johnny Depp, so that's it. Incidentally, I remember I had a manager of a charity shop I used to work in, and she was a big Johnny Depp fan. She was also a feminist, so I wonder how she would perceive this whole thing. I imagine she's following it. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, but I think the issues are very important, and I just hope truth prevails. It's a sad situation, but it's an important story for all the reasons I've said. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.